The chlorine smell hit me before I even opened the gate to the community pool. It was the summer of 2019, and I had just turned 28, freshly divorced, and desperately trying to piece together what remained of my life. The apartment complex I'd moved into was nothing special, a generic building in suburban Phoenix, with beige walls and artificial plants in the lobby, but it had a pool, and that summer, the pool became my sanctuary. I should back up and explain how I got there. My name is Rachel Morrison, and 6 months before that summer, I had been living what everyone assured me was the perfect life. I was married to Derek, a successful real estate developer. We had a beautiful house in Scottsdale, 2 cars, and a golden retriever named Biscuit. On paper, everything looked ideal. In reality, I was drowning. Derek wasn't a bad person, but our marriage was built on expectations rather than genuine connection. We'd met in college, dated because it seemed like the natural progression, and married because that's what you did at 24 when you'd been together for 3 years. My parents loved him. His parents loved me. Everyone was so happy about our union that I convinced myself I was happy too, but I wasn't. I felt like I was playing a role in someone else's life, reading lines from a script I hadn't written. The worst part was that I couldn't explain why I felt so empty. Derek was attentive, successful, and kind. We rarely fought. We had good jobs, nice vacations, and a solid group of couple friends. Yet every night, I lay in bed feeling like a stranger in my own skin. The breaking point came on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Derek and I were having dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, the same place where he'd proposed 4 years earlier. We were discussing plans to start trying for a baby, another natural progression, another box to check. As he talked enthusiastically about converting the spare bedroom into a nursery, something inside me snapped. "I can't do this," I heard myself say. Derek stopped mid-sentence, his fork hovering over his pasta. "Can't do what?" "The nursery. We can hire someone." "No, this, us, any of it." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I'm not happy, Derek. I haven't been happy for a long time." What followed were weeks of painful conversations, awkward silences, and the slow dismantling of a life we'd built together. Derek was hurt and confused, asking repeatedly what he'd done wrong. The truth was, he hadn't done anything wrong. The problem was me, and specifically, something I'd been avoiding, confronting for my entire adult life. I'd always known, somewhere deep down, that I was different. In high school, while my friends obsessed over boys, I found myself fixating on my female classmates. I told myself it was admiration, that I just wanted to be like them. In college, I had a close friendship with my roommate Emma that felt charged with something I couldn't name. We'd stay up all night talking, and I'd feel a flutter in my chest when she laughed at my jokes. When she started dating someone, I was devastated in a way that seemed disproportionate for a friendship, but I'd pushed those feelings down, convinced myself they were just confusion or a phase. I dated men exclusively, and Derek was the longest relationship I'd had. Marrying him felt safe, expected, normal. It wasn't until the marriage started falling apart that I finally allowed myself to examine those buried feelings. After the divorce was finalized, I needed a fresh start. The house went to Derek. I didn't want any part of that old life. I found the cheapest, decent apartment I could afford, packed up my essentials, and left behind almost everything else. Biscuit stayed with Derek too. That one hurt the most. So there I was, 28 years old, divorced, and trying to figure out who Rachel Morrison actually was when she wasn't playing the role of someone's perfect wife. The pool became my escape. I'd go every day around 6 in the evening, after the families had cleared out and before the rowdy college students showed up. I'd swim laps until my arms ached, letting the physical exhaustion quiet the chaos in my mind. The repetitive motion was meditative: stroke, breathe, stroke, breathe. In the water, I didn't have to think about my failed marriage, my disappointed parents, or the big questions I was finally starting to ask myself. I first saw her on a Thursday in late June. I was doing my usual routine, plowing through lap after lap, when I surfaced at the shallow end and noticed someone sitting in one of the lounge chairs. She had long dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, golden brown skin that suggested Latina heritage, and was absorbed in a book, seemingly oblivious to everything around her. Something about her presence shifted the energy of the space. I found myself sneaking glances between laps, trying not to be obvious. She was wearing a simple black one-piece swimsuit and oversized sunglasses, but there was an elegance to her, a kind of self-possessed grace that made her magnetic. I told myself to focus on my swimming, but I kept losing count of my laps. After what might have been my 10th or 20th length, I genuinely couldn't remember. I finally gave up and pulled myself out of the pool. As I walked toward my towel, which happened to be on the chair next to hers, our eyes met for the first time. "Sorry, is this seat taken?" I asked, even though my towel had clearly been there the entire time. She looked up from her book and smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Only by your towel," she said. Her voice had a slight accent, soft and musical. "Right, of course." I felt immediately awkward, like a teenager trying to talk to her crush. I grabbed my towel and started drying off, acutely aware of her presence beside me. "You're a strong swimmer," she said, closing her book. "Oh, thanks. I'm not really. I like the exercise. I've seen you here most evenings. You're very dedicated." The realization that she'd been watching me made my heart skip. "Yeah, I've been coming regularly. I just moved into the complex a couple months ago." "Me too, well, sort of. I moved here in April." She extended her hand. "I'm Sophia Reyes, Rachel Morrison." Her handshake was firm and warm. "It's nice to officially meet you, Rachel Morrison." I was beginning to think everyone here was either elderly or 18. I laughed, relaxing slightly. "Right. The demographic is definitely interesting. Where did you move from?" "Scottsdale. You San Diego originally, but most recently from a bad relationship in Tempe." She said it matter-of-factly, without any trace of self-pity. "I can relate to that. I said before, I could think better of it. Bad relationship. I mean, well, not bad exactly, just wrong." Sophia nodded knowingly. "Sometimes wrong is worse than bad. At least with bad, you know you need to leave. With wrong, you can spend years trying to force something that was never going to fit." Her words hit me so precisely that I felt exposed, like she could see straight through to all my confusion and doubt. "That's exactly it," I said quietly. We talked until the sun set and the automatic pool lights flickered on, casting wavering reflections across the water. Sophia was 32, a graphic designer who worked mostly from home for various clients. She'd left her ex-girlfriend 3 months ago after a 5-year relationship that had slowly deteriorated into comfortable coexistence. She said it casually, naturally, and I felt a jolt of recognition mixed with anxiety. Here was someone who was openly gay, living authentically in a way I'd never allowed myself to even imagine. "What about you?" she asked. "What brought you to this glamorous complex?" I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Divorce from my husband. It was all very amicable and very necessary." "How long were you married?" "For years. Together for 7 total." "That's a long time to realize it wasn't right." "Yeah." I looked down at my hands. "I'm kind of slow on the uptake about certain things." Sophia tilted her head, studying me with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously uncomfortable and seen. "Or maybe you just needed the right time to figure yourself out." The conversation continued, flowing easily, despite the weight of what we were discussing. Sophia had a way of asking questions that invited honesty without feeling intrusive. She told me about her own journey, knowing she was gay from a young age, coming out to her family at 16, navigating the dating world as an openly queer woman. "My parents were actually pretty accepting," she said. "My mom had some trouble at first, mostly because she worried about how hard my life would be. But she came around. Now she asks about my dating life more than I'd like." I felt a pang of envy. I hadn't even begun to process my own sexuality with my parents, who had already expressed disappointment about the divorce. The idea of telling them I might be gay felt overwhelming. "That must be nice," I said, "having that support." "It is, but I know I'm lucky. A lot of my friends weren't so fortunate." She paused. "Can I ask you something, Rachel?" "Sure. Are you questioning, about your sexuality?" The directness of the question should have startled me, but instead, it felt like relief. Finally, someone was asking what I'd been dancing around. "I think so," I admitted. "Actually, yes, definitely yes. I don't really know what to do with that information." Sophia smiled gently. "You don't have to do anything with it right now. Just knowing is a big step." After that evening, Sophia and I fell into an easy friendship. We'd meet at the pool most days, sometimes swimming together, other times just talking for hours while the Arizona sun set in brilliant oranges and purples. She became the first person I could really talk to about what I was going through. I keep second-guessing everything, I told her one evening about 2 weeks after we'd met, like, maybe I'm just confused because my marriage ended. Maybe I'm looking for an explanation for why I was so unhappy. Sophia was lying on a lounge chair, her sunglasses pushed up on her head. Or maybe your marriage ended because you were suppressing a fundamental part of yourself. But how can I know for sure? I've never even kissed the woman. What if I'm wrong, Rachel? Here's the thing, sexuality isn't something you prove through experimentation like a science project. It's something you feel, something you know inside yourself. She sat up and looked at me directly. Did you ever really want Derek? Like, genuinely desire him? I thought about it honestly. I mean, we had sex. It was fine. Okay, it was more than fine sometimes. It was good, but I trailed off, trying to find the words. But I never felt like I was going to crawl out of my skin if I couldn't have him. I never looked at him and felt overwhelmed by wanting. Everyone always talks about passion and chemistry, and I just figured that was movie stuff, not real life. It's real life, Sophia said softly. When you want someone, really want them, you feel it everywhere. It's not just physical. It's this ache in your chest, this need to be close to them, to know them, to touch them. Have you felt that way? Yes. With my first girlfriend, definitely. With Anna, my ex, less so, especially toward the end. But I've felt it. I was quiet for a moment, processing. I think maybe I felt something like that in college. There was this girl, Emma. She was my roommate. I thought about her constantly. I wanted to be around her all the time. When she was dating someone, I felt physically sick with jealousy. But I convinced myself it was just friendship. Was it? No, I admitted. I don't think it was. Sophia reached over and squeezed my hand. Then you have your answer. Maybe not the complete answer, but the beginning of one. Our friendship deepened over the following weeks. We started doing things outside the pool, getting coffee, going to movies, exploring hiking trails in the mountains surrounding Phoenix. Sophia introduced me to her friend group, mostly other queer women, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was among people who understood something fundamental about me that I was only beginning to understand myself. But there was also a tension building, at least on my end. The more time I spent with Sophia, the more I found myself thinking about her when we weren't together. I'd lie in bed at night replaying our conversations, remembering the way she laughed, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. I found myself noticing small details, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the graceful movement of her hands when she talked, the way she smelled like coconut sunscreen and something floral, that it scared me. This felt different from anything I'd experienced before, more intense than what I'd felt for Emma, certainly more powerful than anything I'd ever felt for Derek. I was falling for Sophia, and I had no idea what to do about it. Things changed on the 4th of July. The complex was hosting a pool party, complete with a DJ, catered food, and fireworks. After dark, Sophia invited me to join her and some friends, and I agreed. Even though social events still made me anxious in the aftermath of my divorce, I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing what to wear. A simple navy blue bikini that was more modest than what I usually wore to the pool. I told myself I wasn't trying to look good for Sophia specifically, but that was a lie. When I arrived, the pool area was packed with residents. I spotted Sophia immediately. She was wearing a red two-piece that looked stunning against her skin, her hair down in loose waves instead of her usual bun. She was laughing with a group of friends, drink in hand, completely at ease. When she saw me, her face lit up. Rachel, you made it. She bounded over and pulled me into a hug that lasted just a beat longer than casual. I made it, I confirmed, hyper-aware of how little clothing we were both wearing, how much of her skin was touching mine. She introduced me to her friends Mia, a teacher, James, a nurse, and Chris, who worked in tech. They welcomed me warmly, making space for me in their circle. Sophia stayed close to my side, occasionally touching my arm or shoulder as she talked, and I tried not to read too much into these casual gestures. As the afternoon wore on and the drinks flowed, the atmosphere became more relaxed and flirtatious. I watched Sophia interact with her friends, noting how comfortable she was, with affection, hugging, touching, and ease with physical intimacy that felt foreign to me. I'd spent so much of my life maintaining careful boundaries, never allowing myself to be too close to women in case someone might suspect something I wasn't ready to admit. "You're staring," Mia said, appearing beside me with a knowing smile. I flushed. "What? No, I was just..." "It's okay. She's worth staring at." Mia took a sip of her drink. "She likes you too, you know." My heart hammered. "We're just friends." And I'm straight. Mia winked at me. Look, I don't know your whole situation, but I've known Sophia for 5 years. I've seen her with a lot of people. The way she looks at you is different. Different how? Like you matter, like she's trying not to hope too much. Before I could respond, Sophia called out, Rachel, come swim with me. She was already in the pool, treading water in the deep end. I made my way over and slid in, the cool water a relief from the heat and my own nervous energy. Having fun? She asked, swimming closer. Yeah, your friends are great. They like you. She smiled. I knew they would. We floated there for a moment, the noise of the party fading into background. The sun was beginning to set, painting everything in golden light. Can I tell you something? Sophia asked. Of course, I'm really glad you moved here. Really glad we met. Me too, I said, meaning it completely. Rachel, she paused, seeming to wrestle with something. I need to be honest with you about something. My pulse quickened. Okay, I like you. As more than a friend, I have for a while now. She maintained eye contact, vulnerable but steady. I know you're still figuring things out, and I don't want to pressure you or make things weird. But I also don't want to keep pretending I don't feel this way. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Everything I'd been feeling, all the confusion and longing and fear, crystallized into a single clear truth. I liked her too. I more than liked her. I like you too, I finally managed. I'm just terrified. Of what? Of everything. Of getting it wrong. Of hurting you. Of this being another mistake. The words rushed out. What if I'm just confused? What if I'm not really gay and I'm just projecting all my issues onto you? What if Rachel? She reached out and touched my face, her hand gentle. Stop. I stopped. Those are all valid fears, but you can't let fear make all your decisions. You already did that once, and where did it get you? Divorced and living in a mediocre apartment complex. She laughed. Exactly. Look, I'm not asking you to have everything figured out. I'm not asking you to label yourself, or come out or make any big declarations. I'm just asking if you want to explore this, see what happens. I looked at her really, looked at her dark eyes, full of hope and patience, at her smile, soft and encouraging, at the way the setting sun caught in her wet hair, and I thought about how I felt when I was with her. How the world felt more vibrant, how I felt more myself than I had in years. I want to, I said. I really want to. Her smile widened. Yeah, okay then. She moved closer, closing the distance between us and the water. Can I kiss you? Every cell in my body screamed yes, but fear still held me back. Here, in front of everyone. She glanced around. The party had gotten louder, people absorbed in their own conversations and activities. No one's paying attention to us, but we can wait, if you're not ready. I thought about waiting, about being cautious, about protecting myself. Then I thought about how much of my life I'd already wasted hiding. No, I said, don't wait. Sophia smiled and leaned in, her lips meeting mine softly, tentatively. It was gentle at first, questioning. Then I responded, and everything else fell away. This was what everyone had been talking about, this electricity, this rightness, this feeling of coming home. Her lips were soft, her kiss sweet, and I felt it everywhere, in every nerve ending, in the rapid beating of my heart. When we pulled apart, I was breathless. Wow, good wow, really good wow. I laughed, feeling dizzy and exhilarated. Can we do that again? We can do that as many times as you want. The next few weeks were a revelation. Sophia and I started dating, though I asked to keep it relatively private while I figured things out. She was understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was comfortable with. We spent nearly every evening together, sometimes at the pool, sometimes at her apartment or mine, sometimes out exploring the city. She was patient with my anxiety, my constant second-guessing, my moments of panic when the reality of what I was doing hit me. What if I'm not good at this? I asked her one night. We were at her place, curled up on her couch watching a movie. Being with a woman, Sophia paused the movie and turned to me. Rachel, there's no one way to be with a woman. You just be yourself. That's all I want. But I don't have experience. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither did I when I first came out. Nobody does. It's not about technique or having a manual. It's about connection, communication, paying attention to what feels good for both of you. She tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Besides, from where I'm sitting, you're doing just fine. Physically, things progressed slowly. I needed time to adjust to this new reality, to get comfortable with intimacy with a woman. Sophia never rushed me, content with kissing and cuddling until I was ready for more. When we finally did sleep together, about a month after that first kiss at the pool, it was nothing like what I'd experienced before with Derek. Sex had been functional, pleasant enough, but never transcendent. With Sophia, it was like my body finally understood what it had been made for. Every touch felt electric, every kiss profound. I finally understood what people meant when they talked about losing themselves in another person, about passion that consumed you. Afterward, lying tangled in her sheets, I started crying. "Hey, what's wrong?" Sophia asked, concerned. "Did I hurt you?" "No." I wiped my eyes, laughing through the tears. "The opposite. I didn't know it could be like that. I've been missing this my whole life." She pulled me closer. "Well, now you know, and we have plenty of time to make up for it." But it wasn't just the physical intimacy that was different. Everything about being with Sophia felt right in a way my marriage never had. We could talk for hours about anything and everything. We laughed constantly. We challenged each other, supported each other, understood each other on a fundamental level. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe freely. The question of coming out loomed over me. Sophia was out to everyone in her life, and while she never pressured me, I knew that hiding our relationship hurt her. We couldn't hold hands in public. I avoided posting anything about her on social media. When her friends asked about us, I'd panic and change the subject. "I just need more time," I kept telling her. "I know," she'd say, "take the time you need." But I could see it wearing on her. The forced distance, the constant vigilance, the feeling of being someone's secret. I hated putting her through it, but I was terrified of the alternative. My parents were the biggest obstacle. My mother had already expressed disappointment about my divorce, making comments about how I'd given up to Isley, how Derek was such a good man. The idea of telling her that I was gay, that I'd left Derek because I was attracted to women, felt impossible, but keeping it secret was becoming impossible too. I was lying to everyone: my parents, my few remaining friends from my marriage, my coworkers. Every conversation felt like navigating a minefield, carefully avoiding mentions of who I spent my time with or how happy I'd become. The decision was ultimately forced on me. My mother called one Saturday morning, asking to come visit. "I want to see your new place," she said. "Make sure you're settling in okay." "Now's not really a good time, Mom. I'm your mother, Rachel. I'm worried about you. You've been so distant lately." She was right. I had been distant, pulling away because I couldn't figure out how to be close while hiding such a fundamental part of my life. "Okay," I said. "Next weekend." After I hung up, I immediately called Sophia, panic evident in my voice. "Breathe," she said calmly. "This could be a good thing. An opportunity. An opportunity for her to disown me, maybe. Rachel, you don't know how she'll react. And honestly, even if she does react badly at first, don't you want to stop hiding? Don't you want to live authentically?" I did. God, I really did. But the fear was overwhelming. Sophia came over that evening. We sat on my couch, and she held my hand while I spiraled through worst-case scenarios. What if she never speaks to me again? What if my dad is disappointed? What if they tell the whole family and everyone judges me? "Then you'll deal with it," Sophia said gently. "And you won't be alone. I'll be here. My friends will be here. You have people now who love you for exactly who you are." "I'm scared." "I know, but you're also brave. You left a marriage that wasn't right. You started questioning everything you'd been taught to believe about yourself. You took a chance on us. That's all brave, Rachel." The week leading up to my mother's visit was agony. I went back and forth 1,000 times about whether to tell her. Sophia suggested I might want to just introduce them, let my mother meet her as my girlfriend without a big announcement. "Just be normal," she said. "Treat me the way you would if I were a boyfriend you were excited about. Let her see how happy you are." On the day of my mother's visit, Sophia came over in the morning to help me clean and prepare. We were in the kitchen when the doorbell rang, and I felt my stomach drop. "You've got this," Sophia whispered, squeezing my hand. I opened the door to find my mother standing there with her usual perfect posture, her blonde hair styled immaculately, her smile strained. "Hi, Mom." "Rachel." She hugged me briefly, then stepped inside. Her eyes immediately found Sophia in the kitchen. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company." This was it, the moment of truth. "Mom, this is Sophia, my girlfriend." I said it quickly, before I could lose my nerve. The word girlfriend felt foreign but also thrilling coming out of my mouth. My mother's face went through several expressions: confusion, shock, something that might have been disapproval. I'm sorry, you're what? My girlfriend, I repeated, more firmly this time. We've been together for about 2 months now. Sophia stepped forward, extending her hand with a warm smile. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Morrison. Rachel has told me a lot about you. My mother shook her hand automatically, still processing. This is unexpected. I know, I said. Can we sit down? I'd like to explain. What followed was the most difficult conversation of my life. I told my mother everything about how I'd always known something was different, about the feelings I'd suppressed, about why my marriage to Derek had failed, about meeting Sophia, and finally understanding myself. My mother listened, her face unreadable. When I finished, there was a long silence. I don't understand, she finally said. You were married to a man. You never said anything about liking women. I was trying not to be, I admitted. I thought if I just lived the right way, followed the right path, these feelings would go away. But they didn't. They never did. And I was miserable. Mom, you seemed happy. I seemed like what everyone expected me to be. There's a difference. Another silence. Sophia had excused herself to my bedroom, giving us privacy, but I wished she was beside me. This is a lot to process, my mother said finally. I know, I'm not expecting you to understand right away, but I need you to know that this isn't a phase or a mistake. This is who I am. Sophia is important to me. This relationship is important to me. What will people say? The family, our friends, I don't care what they say. The words came out stronger than I expected. I spent my whole life caring what people thought, and it made me miserable. I'm happy now, Mom. Really, genuinely happy for the first time in years. My mother looked at me, really looked at me, and something in her expression softened. You do seem different, lighter somehow, because I'm finally being myself. She was quiet for a long moment. I need time, she said eventually. This isn't what I expected for you, but I can see that you're serious about this. It wasn't acceptance, but it wasn't rejection either. I'd take it. My mother's visit ended awkwardly, with promises to talk more later. True to her word, she called a few days after she got home. The conversation was stilted but civil. She asked questions about Sophia, about how I'd known, about my plans for the future. Some of her questions were pointed. Are you sure about this? You haven't been with many men. How do you know? But she was trying, in her way. I've invited Sophia to come home for Thanksgiving, I told her at the end of the call. I'd really like you to get to know her. There was a pause. Thanksgiving is months away. Let's see how things go. It was something. My father was easier, surprisingly. When my mother told him, his response was simply, is she happy? When told yes, he said, then that's what matters. He called me the next day to tell me he loved me and wanted to meet Sophia properly. Coming out to my coworkers was nerve-wracking but ultimately anticlimactic. Most people were supportive or indifferent. A few were awkward about it, but no one was openly hostile. I started bringing Sophia to work events, introducing her proudly as my girlfriend. The more I came out, the freer I felt. Each time I said the words, I'm gay, this is my girlfriend, I'm with a woman, it became easier, more natural. The shame and fear that had defined so much of my life began to dissolve. Sophia and I moved in together 6 months after we started dating. It felt fast, but also right. Why waste time when you know you've found your person? My mother came to visit our new apartment, a 2-bedroom place with a balcony overlooking the mountains. She was polite to Sophia, asking about her work, complimenting her taste in furniture. It wasn't warmth, not yet, but it was progress. Your father and I have been talking, she said before she left. We'd like you both to come home for Christmas. I hugged her, tears in my eyes. Thank you, Mom. I'm trying. Rachel, this isn't easy for me, but you're my daughter. I love you. I love you too. A year passed, then another. Sophia and I built a life together. Simple, beautiful, authentic. We adopted a cat named Luna. We had regular dinners with her friends, who had become my friends too. We took trips, explored new places, created traditions. My mother gradually warmed to Sophia. By our second Christmas together, she was asking Sophia about her family, sharing recipes, treating her like a true daughter. My father adored her from the start, often taking her side when we jokingly argued it wasn't always perfect. We had fights like any couple about money, household responsibilities, differing needs for space and togetherness. But we learned to communicate, to work through our issues rather than letting them fester. Every disagreement we navigated made us stronger. I changed careers, leaving my corporate job to pursue photography, something I'd always been passionate about but never had the courage to try. Sophia supported me completely, believing in my talent even when I doubted myself. You're allowed to want things, she told me when I worried about the financial risk. You're allowed to chase your dreams. On the 2-year anniversary of the day we met, Sophia took me back to the pool where it had all started. The complex had a policy against private events, but she'd gotten special permission from the management. The pool area was decorated with candles and flowers, fairy lights strung around the fence. "What is this?" I asked, laughing and crying at the same time. "This is where I met the love of my life," Sophia said, taking my hands. "This is where everything changed for both of us. It seemed like the right place for this." She got down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Rachel Morrison, you changed my life from the moment I saw you swimming determined laps while trying to figure out who you were. You've taught me that it's never too late to become yourself. That courage isn't the absence of fear but pushing through it anyway, and that real love is worth every risk. Will you marry me?" I pulled her to her feet and kissed her, tasting salt from my own tears. "Yes," I said. "Yes, absolutely yes." We got married the following summer, in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. My parents were there, my mother crying through the whole thing. My father walked me down the aisle and hugged Sophia afterward, telling her to take care of his daughter. Emma, my college roommate, came to the wedding. We'd reconnected through Facebook, and I'd told her about my journey. She admitted that she'd had feelings for me too back then, but had been too scared to say anything. We laughed about our younger selves, about what might have been if we'd both been brave enough to be honest. "But this is how it was supposed to happen," Emma said, watching Sophia across the room. "You found exactly who you were meant to find. Derek even sent a card, congratulating me and saying he was happy I'd found my truth. It was generous of him, and I appreciated the closure." Standing at our wedding reception, surrounded by friends and family who loved us exactly as we were, I thought about that scared woman who'd shown up at the pool 2 years ago. The one who was drowning in confusion and fear, who couldn't imagine a future that felt authentic. I caught Sophia's eye across the room, and she smiled at me, that same warm, genuine smile from the first day we met. She wove through the crowd to reach me, taking my hand. She asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible," I answered honestly. Our honeymoon was 2 weeks in Costa Rica beaches, rainforests, and the kind of relaxation I'd never allowed myself before. On our last night there, we sat on the balcony of our hotel room, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. "I've been thinking," Sophia said, her head resting on my shoulder, "about everything that had to happen to get us here. Like what? Like, if you hadn't married Derek, you might not have realized what was missing. If I hadn't moved to Phoenix when I did, if you'd chosen a different apartment complex, if I'd gone to the pool at a different time that day." She trailed off. "So many little choices that led to us." "You believe in fate?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I just believe that sometimes the universe conspires to give you exactly what you need when you're finally ready to receive it." She lifted her head to look at me. "You were ready, Rachel. That's what matters. You were finally ready to stop hiding." She was right. All those years of suppressing who I was, of trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me, they hadn't been wasted. They'd been necessary steps on the journey to becoming myself. I didn't regret marrying Derek, because that experience taught me what I didn't want, what wouldn't work. Sometimes you have to try the wrong path to appreciate the right one. "What are you most excited about?" Sophia asked. "Now that we're married, starting this new chapter." I thought about it. Everything, honestly, but mostly just existing with you, not having to hide or explain or justify, just being us. "That's beautiful, and also incredibly boring," she teased. I laughed. "Okay, fine. I'm excited about potentially starting a family, about building my photography business, about all the adventures we haven't had yet, but also, yes, about the boring domestic stuff, grocery shopping together, arguing about whose turn it is to do dishes, falling asleep next to you every night." "Now that's the romance I signed up for," Sophia said, grinning. "The first year of marriage wasn't without its challenges. We had to learn to navigate the difference between dating and building a life together. Small annoyances became bigger when you couldn't escape them. Sophia's habit of leaving cabinet doors open, my tendency to procrastinate on household tasks, our different approaches to money management. We had our first real fight about 6 months after the wedding. It was stupid. Really something about vacation planning that escalated into deeper frustrations we'd both been holding back. Sophia accused me of being passive, of never stating what I really wanted. I accused her of being controlling, of always needing things her way. We both said things we regretted. Sophia slept on the couch that night, and I lay in our bed feeling miserable and alone, wondering if we'd made a mistake. But in the morning, we talked, really talked. We apologized, identified the real issues beneath the surface argument, and committed to working on our communication. It was uncomfortable and painful, but we came out stronger. Every couple fights, Sophia's friend Mia told me later when I confided my fears. The difference between couples who make it and couples who don't is whether they're willing to do the work to repair things. We were willing. That was what mattered. My photography business grew slowly but steadily. I specialized in LGBTQ+ weddings and engagement photos, finding deep satisfaction in capturing love stories like ours, relationships that had often been one that represented courage and authenticity. Each couple I photographed reminded me of our own journey. One particularly memorable session was with two women in their 60s who had been together for 40 years but could only now legally marry. They'd survived decades of discrimination, of having to hide their relationship, of being treated as roommates by their own families. It gets easier, one of them told me as I photographed them. Not easy, but easier. The world changes. You change, and one day you wake up and realize you've built an entire beautiful life with the person you love, and none of the hard parts matter anymore. I thought about that a lot, about the difference between their generation and mine, about how much progress had been made and how much work remained. I was grateful for the pioneers who'd fought for the rights I now enjoyed, and I committed to being visible, to living openly, to making it easier for the next generation. 2 years into our marriage, Sophia and I started seriously discussing having children. It was something we'd both wanted, but the logistics of queer family planning were complex. Choosing a sperm donor, deciding who would carry, navigating the legal and medical systems that weren't always designed with same-sex couples in mind. We decided Sophia would carry our first child. She was older and had always been certain she wanted the experience of pregnancy. I supported her completely, even as I grappled with unexpected feelings of jealousy and inadequacy. I wish I could do this with you, I told her one night after we'd had our first insemination appointment. Like, physically contribute to creating our baby. You are contributing, Sophia said. You're here, you're my partner. This is our baby, Rachel, regardless of genetics. But the insecurity lingered, especially as the process proved more difficult than we'd anticipated. Month after month of negative pregnancy tests, of disappointment and frustration. Sophia's body was going through so much, and I felt helpless, unable to share the burden. On the 7th attempt, we got a positive test. Sophia woke me up at 5 in the morning, crying and waving the test stick. It worked, she sobbed. We're going to have a baby. I cried too, overwhelmed with joy and relief and a fierce protectiveness for this tiny cluster of cells that would become our child. The pregnancy was relatively smooth, though Sophia suffered from terrible morning sickness in the first trimester. I did everything I could to help, holding her hair back, keeping the kitchen stocked with the few foods she could tolerate, rubbing her feet when they swelled in the 3rd trimester. We took a baby moon to San Diego, visiting Sophia's family and spending lazy days at the beach. Her mother, Maria, pulled me aside one afternoon. "Thank you for making my daughter so happy," she said, "and thank you for loving her family as your own." "That's easy," I told her. "You all accepted me without question. You made me feel like I belonged. You do belong. Your family now." Those words meant more than she knew. Our daughter, Alina Sophia, was born on a rainy Tuesday in October. The labor was long and difficult, and I stayed by Sophia's side through all 18 hours, feeling utterly useless and desperately wishing I could take some of the pain for her. When Alina finally emerged, tiny and screaming and perfect, the nurse placed her on Sophia's chest. My wife looked up at me with exhausted, tear-filled eyes. "We made a person," she whispered in awe. "You made a person," I corrected. "You're amazing." "We," she insisted. "This is ours, Rachel. Look what we created." I looked at Alana, her tiny fingers, her scrunched-up face, the dark hair plastered to her head, and fell completely, irrevocably in love. This was my daughter. Not genetically, but in every way that mattered. The first months of parenthood were simultaneously the most beautiful and most challenging of my life. Sleep deprivation, endless diaper changes, the constant worry that we were doing everything wrong, but also the wonder of watching this tiny human grow and develop. the privilege of being present for every milestone, the depth of love I didn't know I was capable of feeling. My mother flew out to help for the first 2 weeks, and I watched her fall in love with Alina too. She was a natural grandmother, patient and gentle, in a way I didn't remember from my own childhood. "I'm sorry," she said to me one night after Alina had finally fallen asleep. We were sitting in the nursery, exhausted but content. "For what?" "For not accepting you right away. For making you feel like you had to hide who you were. For all the time we lost because I couldn't see past my own expectations." She wiped her eyes, "Watching you with Alina, seeing how much you love her, how much Sophia loves you both, I realized what almost didn't happen because I was too stuck in my own narrow view of the world." I hugged her, both of us crying quietly so as not to wake the baby. "You came around, Mom. That's what matters. You're here now." "I am. And I'm so proud of you, Rachel. Of the life you've built, the courage you've shown, the family you've created." As Alina grew from a newborn to an infant to a curious toddler, I watched how our family configuration shaped her worldview. To her, having two moms was completely normal. She had friends with a mom and dad, friends with single parents, friends with two dads. Love was love, family was family, and it was all equally valid. I documented our life through photography, creating albums that would show Alina her story, how much she was wanted, how much joy she brought, how many people loved her. I photographed the mundane moments: Sophia reading bedtime stories, Elena's first steps, family dinners with grandparents. These ordinary moments felt sacred, evidence of a life fully lived. My photography business evolved to include family portraits, particularly for LGBTQ+ families. I wanted to create the kind of documentation I'd never seen growing up, images that normalized and celebrated diverse family structures. Parents wrote to me thanking me for capturing their families with such warmth and dignity, for creating legacy photos they'd been afraid wouldn't exist. One client, a transgender man who'd just adopted a baby with his husband, broke down crying when he saw their family photos. "I never thought I'd have this," he told me. "A family. Photos to hang on the wall, like everyone else. You have no idea what this means." But I did know. I understood the profound importance of being seen, of having your love and family validated and celebrated. It was the gift Sophia had given me, the gift of visibility and acceptance. 5 years after we met by the pool, Sophia and I took Alina back to that same complex. We'd moved to a house by then, but I'd wanted to show her where it all started. "This is where Mama and I first met," I told Alina, pointing to the pool. "In the water?" Alina asked, her 3-year-old logic trying to make sense of this. "Yes, in the water." "Well, Mama was in the water, and Mom was reading a book." "Tell the story," Alina demanded. She loved hearing about how we'd met, though she was still too young to understand the full significance. Sophia and I sat by the pool while Alina played in the shallow end. Carefully supervised, the area looked exactly the same, but we were completely different people than who we'd been that summer. "Do you ever think about alternate universes?" Sophia asked. "Like, what our lives would be like if we hadn't met?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "I think I'd probably still be unhappy, still trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I think I'd have been okay eventually," Sophia said, "but I wouldn't have been this happy, this fulfilled." She gestured to Alina splashing in the water. "This life we've built, it's better than anything I imagined for myself." "Me too." I leaned my head on her shoulder. "You know what's wild? If you'd asked me 5 years ago if I could picture myself here married to a woman, raising a daughter, running my own business, finally comfortable in my own skin, I would have thought you were describing someone else's life. But it's yours. It's ours." Alina called for us to watch her jump into the pool. We applauded enthusiastically, and she beamed with pride before immediately demanding we watch her do it again. "She has your stubbornness," I told Sophia. "And your need for validation," Sophia countered. We both laughed. When Alina started preschool, we were careful to choose a program that was explicitly LGBTQ friendly. Still, we knew we'd face questions, potential judgment, maybe even discrimination. We prepared Alina as best we could for a 3-year-old, explaining that some kids might think having two moms was unusual, but that it was perfectly normal and okay. The first day of school, I was a nervous wreck. Sophia had to work, so I was doing drop-off alone. I held Elena's hand as we walked into the classroom. Hyper-aware of the other parents' glances, Elena's teacher, Miss Jennifer, greeted us warmly. "You must be one of Elena's moms. She's been so excited to start school." Other parents came up to introduce themselves, friendly and welcoming. One mom mentioned that her brother was gay, and how wonderful it was that the school was inclusive. A dad asked for my business card after learning I was a photographer. My fears of judgment and isolation proved largely unfounded. Times had changed. Or maybe I'd just changed, become more confident, less willing to anticipate discrimination around every corner. That year, I started volunteering with a local LGBTQ youth organization. I wanted to be visible for young people who were struggling the way I had, to show them that it was possible to build a beautiful life being authentically yourself. I met so many brave kids, teenagers who were coming out in hostile environments, young adults kicked out of their homes for being queer, kids who were terrified and alone. I shared my story with them, about being a late bloomer, about spending years in denial, about the joy of finally accepting myself. Did you always know? A 16-year-old girl asked me during one group session. No, I answered honestly. Or maybe I did know but wasn't ready to admit it. I spent a lot of years lying to myself. Do you regret that? The time you lost? Sometimes, but mostly I think everything happened when it was supposed to. I needed those experiences, even the painful ones, to become who I am now. Another young person, 19 years old and recently disowned by their family, asked me, does it get better? Everyone says it does, but I can't imagine how. I thought about my answer carefully. It gets different. Some things get easier, some things stay hard. But yes, overall, it gets better. You find your people, you build chosen family. You learn that other people's acceptance of you matters less than your acceptance of yourself. And one day you wake up and realize you're happy, genuinely happy, in a way you never thought possible. How long did that take you? Too long, I admitted, but I got there, and you will too. Not everything was perfect, of course. Life never is. When Alina was 4, Sophia's mother Maria was diagnosed with cancer. It was aggressive, and despite treatment, she declined rapidly. We spent a lot of time in San Diego that year, me juggling my business remotely while Sophia cared for her mother. It was heartbreaking watching this vibrant woman fade, seeing Sophia's grief and feeling helpless to fix it. Maria died on a Sunday morning with her family around her. Sophia was holding her hand, and I was holding Sophia. And Alina was being brave in a way no 4-year-old should have to be. At the funeral, person after person spoke about Maria's kindness, her warmth, her acceptance of everyone. Multiple people mentioned how welcoming she'd been to me, how she'd treated me like a daughter from day one. She told me once, Sophia, Sister Carmen said during the service, that she was grateful Sophia found Rachel, that she'd worried Sophia would never find someone who could match her strength and passion, but that Rachel was perfect for her. She loved you like her own, Rachel. I cried through the entire funeral, grieving Maria but also crying for Sophia, for the loss she was experiencing, for Alina, who would grow up with limited memories of her grandmother. The months after Maria's death were hard. Sophia struggled with grief, pulling away from me emotionally, even as she clung to me physically. I tried to be patient, to give her space while also being present. But it strained our relationship in ways I hadn't anticipated. I feel like I'm losing you, I told her one night after weeks of minimal communication. I'm grieving, she snapped. Can you give me a break? I am giving you a break, but I'm also your wife, and I'm here, and I'm watching you shut me out completely. She broke down then, finally letting me see the full depth of her pain. We held each other and cried, and slowly, gradually, she started letting me back in. I'm sorry, she said. I've been so focused on my own grief that I forgot you're grieving too. You loved her too. I did, but mostly I'm just worried about you. I know, thank you for being patient with me. Grief became part of our landscape that year, something we had to navigate together. It was a reminder that life brings hardship regardless of who you love, that no relationship is immune to pain and loss. What mattered was facing it together rather than letting it drive us apart. Alina started kindergarten. I turned 30. Sophia published her first children's book, something she'd been working on for years, illustrated with her own gorgeous designs. We celebrated each milestone, the big and small, documenting our life as it unfolded. We took Alina to Disneyland for her 5th birthday, watching her face light up when she met her favorite characters, seeing her fearlessly ride attractions that should have scared someone her age. I felt overwhelmed with love and pride. She's so brave, I said to Sophia as we watched Alina dance with other kids at a parade. She gets that from you, Sophia replied. From me. I'm the one who spent half my life too scared to be myself. Exactly. And then you were brave enough to change everything. That's the kind of courage that matters, not the absence of fear, but pushing through it. We talked more about having another child. I wanted the experience of carrying this time, of contributing biologically to our family. Sophia was supportive but worried about the age gap. Alina would be 6 by the time another baby arrived. I think it'll be good for her, I said, learning to share, having a sibling. Okay, Sophia agreed. Let's do it. The process was easier the second time around. We used the same donor, wanting the children to be genetic half-sip. I got pregnant on the third try, and 9 months later, our son Mateo was born. The experience of pregnancy and birth was everything I'd hoped for and more. I felt connected to this baby in a profound way, experiencing firsthand what Sophia had gone through with Alina, and watching Sophia care for me the way I'd cared for her, bringing me snacks, rubbing my aching back, staying calm through my hormone-fueled mood. Swings deepened our bond even more. Alina was an amazing big sister from day one. She was gentle with Mateo, wanted to help with everything, and took her role seriously. Watching our family grow, seeing our children together, felt like the culmination of a journey I hadn't even known I was on. Now, as I write this, it's been 8 years since that summer at the pool. Alina is in 3rd grade, Mateo is 18 months old, and Sophia and I are navigating the chaos of raising 2 kids while maintaining our careers and our relationship. Some days are hard, really hard. There are sleepless nights with a teething toddler, challenging conversations about LGBTQ+ issues with Alina as she becomes more aware of the world, financial stress from raising a family, and the constant juggling act of work and parenting and marriage. But even on the hardest days, I'm grateful. Grateful for Sophia, who saw something in me before I could see it in myself. Grateful for our children, who are growing up knowing love in all its forms. Grateful for the journey, however painful it was, at times, that brought me to this life. I think about the Rachel who first walked into that pool 8 years ago, so lost, so scared, so desperately unhappy. If I could go back and talk to her, I'd tell her that it's going to be okay, better than okay. I'd tell her that the fear she feels is temporary, but the joy waiting on the other side is permanent. I'd tell her that meeting Sophia by that pool will be the beginning of her real life, the life she was always meant to live. Dear Rachel, you're reading this from 2019, newly divorced and terrified about what comes next. You're questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself, and the uncertainty feels unbearable. I'm writing this from 2027. I'm married to an incredible woman named Sophia. We have 2 beautiful children. I run a successful photography business doing work I'm passionate about. I wake up every day grateful for my life, genuinely content in a way you can't currently imagine. I know you don't believe this future is possible. You're convinced you're too old, too late, too broken. You think you've wasted the best years of your life living a lie, and you're terrified of wasting more. But here's what I need you to understand. It's never too late to become yourself. The journey you're about to embark on won't be easy. You're going to face judgment, disappointment, and fear. You're going to question yourself constantly. There will be moments when you want to retreat back into the safety of hiding, back into the familiar misery of living inauthentically. Don't. Keep going. Keep pushing forward into the unknown. When you meet Sophia, and you will meet her soon, by the pool on a random Thursday evening, be brave. Let yourself feel what you feel. Don't overthink it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't let fear make your decisions. She's going to change your life, but only if you let her. Coming out to mom is going to be hard. She's not going to understand it first, and that's going to hurt. But give her time. She come around, she grow, and one day she'll hold your daughter and tell you how proud she is of you. And you'll cry because you'll realize you have everything you ever wanted. Your life is about to become full of love, real, authentic, overwhelming love, the kind that makes you understand why poets and songwriters and artists have been trying to capture it for centuries. You're going to feel things you didn't know humans could feel. It's going to be scary, and beautiful, and complicated, and perfect. So tonight, when you go to the pool and see a woman with dark hair reading a book, say hello. Start the conversation. Take the first step. Your future is waiting. With love, Rachel.